So, when you think of Disney, you probably think of this massive, magical, successful empire. But what if I told you the real story? The one that actually built everything isn't about magic at all. It's really a blueprint, and it was forged in fire, built from one absolute disaster after another. Let's just reframe this whole thing with one big question. What if the world's most successful entertainment company was actually built on a foundation of total failure? I mean, what if every single thing that makes Disney Disney today came directly from a moment where the whole company was on the brink of collapse? Because, spoiler alert, that's pretty much exactly what happened. Okay, so to really get this, we have to start with the man himself, with Walt. Because to understand the company, you first have to get the two warring sides of its founder, the dreamer versus the grinder, both of which were hammered into him when he was just a kid. So you've got this childhood on a farm in Marceline. That's where he got the fantasy, the magic. But then his family moves to Kansas City, and he starts this brutal 3:30 in the morning paper route. That's where he got the grit, the work ethic. And that combo, vision plus discipline, that really became this whole deal. But, even that wasn't enough. His very first big swing, a company called Laugh-O-Gram Films, went completely belly up in 1923. I mean, Laugh-O-Gram was supposed to be it. He got $15,000 from investors, a ton of money back then, and it just completely crashed and burned inside of a year. The ideas, they were great. The cartoons, fantastic. But the business side, it was a complete house of cards. And that failure, that stung. It taught him this incredibly painful lesson that he never forgot. Your vision means nothing if you can't pay the bills. It's just an expensive hobby. And see, this is the first key moment. That bankruptcy directly leads to the creation of the company's first and maybe most important strategic asset. Walt packs up, moves to Hollywood, and starts a new studio. But this time, he's not doing it alone. He brings in his brother, Roy. And Roy was the numbers guy, the financial whiz, the guy who made sure the lights stayed on. The dreamer now had a realist by his side, and that partnership, that became the foundation for everything.
All right, so with Roy handling the money, things are looking up. They're actually finding some success. But wouldn't you know it, that success leads them straight into the next major crisis. And this one was a betrayal that would change the company forever.
Seriously, just think about this for a sec. How do you lose your own creation? Imagine you create a hit character, a total star, and then someone just legally steals it from you. Sounds impossible, right? Well, that is precisely what happened to Walt Disney. So the year is 1928. Walt heads to his distributor, Universal Studios, feeling pretty good. He's there to ask for a bigger budget for his smash hit character, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. And not only does Universal say no, they drop a bombshell. Turns out, if you read the fine print, they owned the rights to Oswald, not Walt. And to twist the knife, they'd already hired away almost his entire animation team. So in one single brutal meeting, Walt lost his character, his staff, and his paycheck. Everything. That absolute humiliation was a turning point. It forged a new, ironclad rule. They say that on the train ride home from that soul-crushing meeting, Walt and his wife Lily sketched out a new character. And this time, there was going to be zero question about who was in charge. Mickey Mouse would be owned, controlled, and fiercely protected by Walt Disney Productions. End of story.
And there it is. The Oswald disaster created the second pillar of the Disney blueprint. It's a company rule that is absolutely non-negotiable, even today. You always own and control your own IP. That one principle has shaped every single deal, every acquisition, every contract the company has signed ever since.
Okay, so Pillar 1, financial stability. Pillar 2, control your IP. Now, with that sorted, Walt sets his sights on something no one, and I mean no one, had ever done before, a full-length animated movie. This wasn't just a creative risk. It was a bet the company gambled that came dangerously close to bankrupting them all over again. You have to understand, the entire industry thought he had lost his mind. People in Hollywood were openly making fun of him, calling the whole project Disney's folly. The conventional wisdom was, no one is going to sit in a dark theater for 90 minutes to watch a cartoon. Everyone, and I mean everyone, was convinced it would fail. And the budget just kept growing, eventually hitting $1.5 million. Now you got to remember, this is the 1930s during the Great Depression. That's an astronomical sum of money to bet on something that's never been done before. Failure wasn't just some abstract concept. It meant the company was done, finished. But here's the thing. That huge budget wasn't just going to paying animators. Walt knew that to make this crazy gamble pay off, he had to deliver something people had never seen before. So he poured money into developing new technology, especially the famous multiplane camera. This thing wasn't just a cool gadget, it was a strategic weapon. It created this incredible illusion of depth, and by hiring literal rocket scientists from Caltech to perfect it, he built a technological moat. His competitors just couldn't compete with the look he was creating. Snow White is a massive, massive hit. It ushers in this golden age for the studio. But that perfect, happy image of the Disney studio, well, that was about to be completely shattered. And not by a competitor or a bad business deal, but by a fight from the inside. So in 1941, the animators, the very people drawing the magic, they walk out. They go on strike. And for 4 long months, they're picketing the studio. And their complaints were pretty straightforward. Some people were getting paid a fortune, while others were barely scraping by. Walt refused to let them form a union, and when they tried, he fired the organizers. That whole happy family vibe the studio projected, it was revealed to be a total myth. It got so ugly that the federal government actually had to step in and send a mediator to sort it all out. And you know what? The mediator's report was a bombshell. It sided with the strikers on, and this is a quote, every issue. The company's hand was forced. They had to recognize the union and bring back the people they'd fired. But the trust was broken. The damage was permanent. The creative soul of the studio was fractured. A lot of the top talent, the animators who had invented the golden age of animation, they just never came back. And that brain drain was so severe that it actually forced the company to change direction. They couldn't rely solely on animation anymore, so they had to start looking into other things, like live-action movies and TV. And that pivot, that need to find new revenue streams, it leads Walt to his next, biggest, and craziest idea, a theme park. But in what's becoming a familiar pattern, nobody believed in it. This time, the biggest skeptics were on his own board of directors. So once again, he was forced to get creative and basically invent a new way to finance the whole thing. So his board says, nope, we're not funding this. So Walt does an end run around them. He creates a brand new company just for the park, called Disneyland Incorporated. And then he starts selling off big pieces of it to raise money. Think about that. He had to sell off more than 65% of his own dream before a single shovel hit the dirt. And a huge piece of that went to a key partner, the ABC television network. And this is where the genius of the deal comes in. See, the Disney studio didn't have the cash to build a park, but it had something just as valuable, content. So Walt makes a deal. He trades ABC a weekly TV show, which by the way would be a giant commercial for the park. And in exchange, ABC gives him the $7 million in cash and loans he needs to actually build Disneyland. It was one of the first great examples of corporate synergy, turning a TV show into the funding for a theme park. Just brilliant.
Okay, so let's take a step back. We've seen bankruptcy, betrayal, bet the company financial risks, a total internal collapse. And through it all, a very clear pattern starts to emerge. Let's put all of these pieces together and look at the final blueprint that was created.
Think about it. Every single crisis created a core piece of the company's strategy. Problem 1, bankruptcy. The solution? Roy Disney's financial discipline. Problem 2, his creation gets stolen. The solution? Total, absolute control over IP. Problem 3, nobody believes in a feature cartoon. The solution? Build a technological advantage your rivals can't touch. Problem 4, your own people revolt. The solution? You're forced to restructure and diversify. And problem 5, not enough cash for Disneyland. The solution? You learn how to leverage your creative content to build physical assets. You see? Failure wasn't the thing that got in the way. Failure was the architect. So this whole history, it shows this incredible cycle of crisis followed by adaptation. It's a blueprint that isn't about avoiding failure at all. It's about surviving it, learning from it, and then turning that painful lesson into a core, unbreakable rule for the future. Which kind of leaves us with one big final question, doesn't it? If this is a company that was literally forged in the fires of crisis, what's the next crisis that's going to define its future?